Hi, everyone. Good evening. Carl Steinbeck here. Just wanted to cover the hearing that was this morning for Donna Adelson, who's accused of murdering Dan Markell, among others. In this hearing this morning, she reported from the jail via Zoom into the judge's courtroom there, Judge Everett. And she did have one of her defense counsel there, the lead counsel, Dan Roshbaum, as well as the state representative for the prosecution being Sarah Dugan. And it was a pretty quick hearing. It was over with in about 6 minutes. I just want to recap a few things for my opening statement here. First thing they talk about was evidentiary matters, that things are working out between them, that the state is continuing to disclose whatever they need to as it comes in, any kind of information that's needs to be turned over as part of the request for discovery from the defense. And of course, there still is digital stuff being reviewed as well. So that's continuing and ongoing requirement for prosecutors, and that's a normal kind of thing that's done here in the United States. And so the next thing they talked about was the conflict of interest, that the judge raised it with Donna, and that's why they had her there. Definitely had her sworn in and everything to make sure they had her locked in, and that she actually concurred and agreed with Daniel Roshbaum being her counsel, even though he previously represented her son, who was convicted of his murder case a few months ago. And so what the judge did is went through a list of questions. I think there's maybe about 7 or 8 of them. And he just wanted to make sure she understood that she did have a conflict, or I should say Roshbaum did, with representing both her as well as Charlie, her son. And in that, she also said that she didn't have a problem with that and that everything was okay. And she was willing to waive that conflict and whatnot. So the thing is, what I was wondering about was this thing looked like it was totally scripted out ahead of time. So what I believe really happened behind the scenes was that there was probably a sealed motion filing by Roshbaum, and Roshbaum's already told us that he's talked to an ethics attorney and this other independent attorney that the judge had asked about in these line of questionings of Donna. He basically asked her if she'd already talked to independent counsel, and she said yes. So every single time she said yes to whatever question the judge asked. So that's what it made me believe it was really scripted. And how would he also? I mean, obviously the judge would know there's a conflict inherently with the with regards to him being the previous judge on the Charlie Adelson murder case. So this is the other thing that was new, though, was the that the judge brought up the issue of Roshbaum may be called to testify. So that leads me to believe that this was part of a package dual issue that they want to have brought up in front of the court, and that they would get done on record saying she concurred with it. And Roshbaum could also say that she's had a chance to talk to independent counsel to get advisement on this, not just me. So that was something also. I think that as far as Roshbaum being called as a witness, I think that's something that's not going to happen at all. I think that would be something that the prosecution, I don't foresee them doing anything like that, just over this issue of what Donna might have been told on whether it's okay to flee the country or not. I mean, there wasn't a warrant that was outstanding for arrest. Roshbaum had said that he didn't know that there was a warrant at the time, and we know there wasn't a warrant at the time that the supposed conversation happened, if indeed it happened. And so I don't think that there's anything he did to break the law that that the state could try to use him to basically be forced to testify against Donna. And if I don't think with Roshbaum on the case, I don't think Donna's going to point the finger at him and say, I only left because my counsel told me it was okay to do that. So anyway, I just don't see that being an issue where he could potentially be called. So I think Rajpal's is trying to cover his bases, because if he is called as a witness, he would get or have to get removed from the case. And the judge brought that up as well. So I think the other conflict issue with him having represented two co-accused, represented different trials, both accused of the same murder, a mother and her son. I think that's the bigger issue. It's extremely rare. I don't think you'll really ever find anything like that. That's once a century kind of thing, probably. And in any event, that's what she wants to do. She wants to keep her her longtime defense counsel here, Daniel Roshbaum, and it doesn't make much sense to most people, as I've seen from the comments, as well as myself, as well as other YouTube commenters on this that I've seen over the last few days. So it just really is a head scratcher. It makes no sense, but if that's what the client wants, they're more comfortable with it. And so be it. And Rashbaum knows the case inside and out from having looked at the file all these years. So he should be ready to go try it tomorrow in his sleep. And so I was sort of wondering and expecting, and I mentioned this last night, that I thought the judge wouldn't do an inquiry like this, and sure enough, he did. I was sort of thinking that there would be more of a dialogue with Donna to make sure she understood exactly what the judge was driving at when he's talking about things like rules of professional responsibility, the conflicts, free counsel guaranteed by the Constitution, and she just said yes, 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 all right down the line. So, I mean, those are sort of complex terms. So I was sort of thinking that there'd be some more follow-up inquiry and, well, what do you understand about that, and what does that mean to you, and what kind of I would maybe do some scenario-based questions on um, what would you do you understand that if you would want to, for example, um, decide to testify against your husband, give incriminating information against your husband, that Daniel Rashbaum cannot represent you any longer, or same kind of thing with Charlie, or I guess he didn't represent Wendy at any point, but any of those issues with other um, family members besides Wendy, those are the kind of things that I thought he could get tripped up on. So then they didn't go into that, and I don't think it's going to be an issue at trial at all, and hopefully it won't be an issue on appeal. But in any event, at least they addressed it, and she's apparently talked to independent counsel. Don't know who the independent counsel was. That didn't come out at all. And so I don't know if it was Alex Morris as the other independent counsel, or if it was somebody that specializes in ethics that would have advised him on that. But in any event, as I've said before, as an attorney, I don't want to go near an ethical problem in representing somebody that could be having a conflict. And here you have an actual conflict. But in any event, it's something that they got worked out in front of the judge. The judge is now okayed it, and they can go forward. And so I think the next thing we're looking at is, when's the trial date going to be? And we don't have that locked in yet. We did have the judge set the next conference management hearing is going to be on the 12th of February in the afternoon at 2:30 Eastern time there in the judge's courtroom. And at that time, we'll probably have a trial date set. It may get worked out between defense and prosecution ahead of time. The judge asked if they're going to waive speedy trial, and Rashbaum said he wasn't there yet, and he needed a couple more weeks to decide that. So if he does decide to waive speedy trial, then they're not locked in that normal standard statutory requirement, which is 175 days from the day of arrest. So you're looking at early May. It's the latest trial date they have right now. So I'm sure that what they're doing is on the calendar. What the court is having a couple weeks set aside just to handle Donna's case, to make sure they don't violate that statute. And then, of course, as I mentioned in an earlier video, if they do demand speedy trial, then that really moves things up, and they could have to have a trial anywhere from 5 days to 45 days thereafter. So a total of 50 days from the date of a written request is filed. But in any event, I don't think that's going to happen, because obviously the new attorney on the case, Alex Morris, needs more time than that to get up to speed. So I think that we may be looking at maybe a June. From my impressions of it today, we may be rolling into maybe June or July, but I can't see it moving past July, because they want to get Donna out of there. I guess is what they'd be talking to her about. And I'm sure she's saying, I'm not going to stay here past midsummer there, like July. So in any event, if you have questions that you've put on here already, if you know my routine, I've sort of developed now. If you just wait till I'm done with my opening statement, then go ahead and load up all your questions that time. That way they're more in a tighter shot group, and we can I can get through them quicker and not take as much time trying to read the right question to have you guys listen to my response for. There was also somebody asked me about, I didn't respond to a super chat last night, and I'm sorry I didn't see the super chat. And I've actually asked people not to give money on a super chat, because that way I don't just like last night, I may not see it, and I don't mean it to be disrespectful, and it just it's I don't want to have anybody jump ahead of the line or whatever. And so basically, I would say, just if you want to give a super chat, save your money, make sure you're getting YouTube Premium, so you don't have to be bothered with any kind of ads that pop up. So in any event, I appreciate that anyway, though. I believe it was Joseph. I can't remember your last name. Thank you for doing that last night. And I did not intentionally try to overlook you, but thank you for that. So I'm going to scroll down now. Yeah, we got this opening statement done much sooner than last night. So, oh, there's Joseph doing it again. So, okay. Yeah, I'm not asking for that, but thank you. So I'm going to jump right down. Spitfire, thank you. I think you did a previous one a few days ago. I didn't. I just came across that earlier tonight. So Pepper is asking, are Donna's new jail issued glasses similar to military issued BCs? I do not. n- Yeah, she does have different ones. Maybe they are jail issued. I am not sure. I do not know if that's what they gave her in the jail or not. Now that you mention it, yeah, these glasses did look smaller. She might have had a second pair in her purse or something. I'm not sure, but have no idea. Karina Joy's asking, in the unlikely event that Rashbaum were called to testify, couldn't co-counsel take the case without Rashbaum if he's adequately prepared for the case, and if Donna is not wanting us another primary lead counsel, then that possibly could be the case. But like I say, I don't see that happening at all. I would be utterly shocked if that was the case, and I just think that whole issue is going to be avoided about anything she was told by counsel. That's my estimation of it. All right, so Carly is asking, what are Dan's motivations for being okay with potentially be called as witness? I don't think he said he was okay at that at any point, and I would say he's highly resistant to that because that means he'd have to get off the case. Because that's one of the things that I know from my state bars, you cannot become a advocate and a witness in the same proceeding. You can be one or the other, but not both. So if he's called as a witness, he's off the case automatically, and that's pretty much universal rules that I've seen throughout the United States because most state bars do somewhat follow the American Bar Association standards on professional responsibility, also known as ethical rules. Quinn is asking, can Rashbaum change an entirely different theory for Donna's defense than the failed theory they used to defend Charlie? And if so, what's the likelihood of that happening? That is something that I thought the judge maybe go into. It's like, you know what, if X was a theory done at Charlie's case and he lost, do you really want to use theory X? Does your attorney really want to use that same theory X again, or does he want to go with theory Y? And so, do you understand? He may feel some pressure and loyalty to what he represented in the first trial to the second trial, which is yours, and he may have some kind of like dilemma about which one is he trying to stick with and say is best and most accurate to the truth. And so I just think that I don't see a different theory coming out at all. So I think he's already thrown out what his theory is and his recent isn't his recent statements he's given out. So I don't see that happening at all. And there's really not much of a theory you can come up with that wouldn't be even more outrageously preposterous and outlandish. So yeah, there's another question about the telephone call with Rashbaum. So I don't need to answer that. I think I've covered that enough here already. So Mr. Swampy's asking, can the prosecution use video of Charlie's prior testimony in court rather than having him there live? And so yeah, I don't. They cannot bring his testimony in without him being there. So that's pretty much a standard rule. You'd have to have live testimony, and you could use testimony or audio to impeach somebody if they don't give the same testimony in court. I've done that before, where I've actually used their own words being played out in front of the jury to see that their stories completely changed. So I just don't see that happening, and because it's under the rules of evidence, that's just not going to happen. PhD nutrition is asking what discovery might they have? I don't know what you mean by never, but what um, what they're trying to do is get all the digital evidence um, cataloged, sorted, and described for the defense to be able to have, and they also, of course, would want to use that in the prosecution if it's incriminating. Hey, Fancy, you're asking about if Rashomon will be an effective witness. He's not going to be a witness in the trial. I just do not see that happening. I can pretty much, there's no doubt in my mind he's not going to testify. I would be really shocked if that happened. And if there, I would say that if there was any inkling that the prosecution was going to call him as a witness, they would have already telegraphed that to judge. They'd be trying to get him off the case right now. So that's another reason why, aside from the issues itself, that's another reason why I guarantee you he's not going to be called as a witness. Practice kindness is saying it seems like Donna's already got coached on acting calmer. Yeah, I agree with that. She did appear more calm there in front of the video. Watercolor Mama's asking what, in my opinion, could possibly be the rationale that drives Donna and Dan's relationship, blind, almost unhinged loyalty between the two of them. What would bind them like this? I mean, part of it, I think, was the long years of fear of what could possibly happen. Not that they had fear initially up until 2016, but when the rest started happening of 2016 of the hitman and then Katie, the middle person, that's when they started freaking out. That's when they started putting stuff into if you recall, they started putting stuff into trusts and whatnot, hiding their assets. So if there was civil suits and whatnot, there would not be any access to them. And so I think that if you're living in that kind of fear in the back of your mind, you want to develop trust with a lawyer, because if you can't trust a lawyer and you're facing serious charges, that's really a troubling situation to be in, I would say. And so if they got a good relationship, they get along great, and he treats her like his mother, supposedly, and he looks at her as a mother figure of sorts, then and he can call her up she can call him up anytime she wants, and his wife goes out to eat with her and whatnot. So they're really buddy buddy. So it probably gives her some comfort and security, thinking that this guy's really got my back. I don't have to worry about trying to establish a new relationship with an attorney I don't really trust. And so I just think there's that familiarity that is desirable for anybody that could be facing serious charges. And eventually, of course, she recently did. So, and then Rajban was able to roll over, and he kept her fully apprised of what was going on with Charlie's case. So she probably, has this developed trust with him, and she doesn't look at him as being a problem. It was just the Tallahassee jury and things like the closing argument for Georgia, her Dateline closing special. Skeeter Girl says, as a standalone issue without the waiver being signed or not, do you think that Rajpam is being unethical to represent Don? I don't. I mean, obviously, the judge allowed that to happen. It was brought up. Rajpam's talked to attorneys and stuff like that. So there's a way you can work it out where it is considered something that you're not going to get in trouble under state ethical rules. At least that's how it works in the states I'm licensed. And then what you had it brought out before the judge. The judge had no issue with it at that point. But like I say, this is an issue more for how close do you want to walk to the ethical conflict lines. So most attorneys would say, I don't want to be anywhere near this kind of ethical conflict, because what if one of them wants to flip? Then you got to be off the case. So, and if you have to be off the case, in the middle of the trial, is that potentially going to be subject to having a mistrial because she says, I didn't get the lawyer I wanted? I don't really. Alex Morris is not the lead counsel. He was only supposed to do one witness. He's not prepared to do it. Or, they could come up with any kind of um, argument they want to try to create a mistrial scenario. So it's risky for the prosecution as well, I would say. So, but in the end, probably what's going to happen is she's not going to roll over on her son. She's not going to roll over on Harvey. So those are the two people that were represented by Daniel Rashbaum in addition to Donna. So it's probably not going to happen. He's banking on that, but it's still just too close for comfort for I would say for most attorneys, and that's why you never see that. Really, it's such a rare thing, especially on murder charges. I mean, you can't get something more risky than so he's sort of like walking a high wire act, I would say. Alexander is asking, do defense lawyers and prosecutors ever speak behind the scenes, discuss what the prosecutors have in plan, such as in Wendy's case, or plans are always being kept in the dark? It's really a case by case basis, and it's up to what the attorneys and prosecutors, what kind of relationship they have. And here, I don't think the prosecutors are telling them anything. I think they got their cards close to the vest, and they're not going to tell much of anything on that. So, don't see that being something that is going on in this case. But otherwise, you could have a prosecutor says, you know what, we're bringing every one of them down. We're going to bring them down one at a time. We're going to charge them within a month of each other, and just go ahead and do that. So it's all really a personality driven type thing, or office policy type thing, and how they're going to interact with the defense counsel. So it is possible. So 789 is saying, so if Rashbaum wasn't Donna's attorney at the time of the hot mic flea talk, then why did he refer to the conversation as privilege? Well, the attorney-client privilege it's generically in the United States. How it works is the attorney-client privilege is such that it's not up to the attorney to decide when the attorney-client privilege exists between the attorney and the so-called client. So if somebody comes up to a lawyer and starts talking about something, and they could just be in, let's say, a Christmas party, and they start talking about some situation that they were in, the lawyer may not want to think of that person as a client, but if that person thinks that they're talking to a lawyer and it's covered by the attorney client privilege, and if there's nobody else around, then that's not waived attorney client privilege. Then, in essence, the that attorney client privilege extends to that attorney, and he cannot talk about that conversation that they had there at the Christmas party to anybody else, unless it's expressly granted that he can talk about it, or it's implied from the conversation that he can talk about it to effectively represent their interests. But so I think there's a lot of confusion with that, where people think like, well, I didn't go in there, I didn't have to put a retainer down. We didn't go over the detailed contract of how they're going to represent me, what the hourly rate is, and what the scope of representation is. All those kind of things are the kind of things that normally attorneys going to do when they meet with the client and they get signed up to take on the legal matter at hand. But for the attorney client privilege to attach, none of that has to take place at all. It's just basically, if the client thinks that they had the privilege with that lawyer, then that lawyer is locked into that. So really, I can say it for my states that if somebody talks to me, I presume it's privileged. That's the safest rule. And so what he did here is exactly what a normal attorney would do, which is say the conversation is privileged. So it doesn't matter that he stopped representing or to represent Charlie. And your duty of loyalty extends lifetime to that client, that you should not disparage or talk bad about their case. And so that's something that a lot of people are confused by. But like I say, it's in the eye of the beholder, the client, as to whether the attorney-client privilege in conversation existed or not. So it's not up to the lawyer. Hi, Dr. Cancel. I don't think Donna will waive speedy trial. I think they're going to, like I say, probably do it somewhere between May and July from the sounds of it. Doesn't sound like they're eager to go to trial that soon, like where they're going to be doing it as soon as May, because if you're having a pretrial conference hearing in February, I mean, you could still do it in May. They're probably, like I say, have a calendar cleared for this to make sure they comply with the statutory requirement for within 175 days. Let's see. So, what new discovery might they have? PhD Nutrition's asking that. Well, that's all the digital stuff. Remember, they had search warrants executed on the computers and phones for Harvey and Donna. So that's the kind of stuff that they're going to be looking at. They've also done search warrants, I think, going back to some of the phone providers, email providers, and so there's more stuff that's going to be coming down the pike here that they'll have to share, and it might be quite voluminous as well. All right, here we got a question here from Tennessee. Do we from Andy? Do you think the state will call Wendy to testify against Donna? Yeah, that's pretty much their MO that they're doing. So I think they're just going to do the exact same thing, call the exact same parties they did before, and with the new evidence that's coming to light, I'm sure some of that they're going to bring to the there for the jury to see. So I think we'll see. It's going to be a little bit longer than we saw with the trial for Charlie because of that. Janelle Marie is asking who's paying the lawyers. Harvey didn't take care of anything. Well, they also have all these accountants and lawyers set up to help manage their finances and stuff like that. So I think that a lot of that's sort of already been worked out, and I think a lot of that's been worked out since 2016. And I think they also revised it maybe somewhat because they were getting ready to flee the country, as we heard from some of those jail recordings that they had. I think it was like a CPA and a lawyer in the room when they were talking, and I thought the line was disconnected. So in any event, I think all that is lined up with other people that may have power attorneys as well to operate some of their business interests or other legal interests. Armin Fence is asking if I think the state will call Ruth and or Rob to testify as adverse character witnesses. Well, not character per se. I think they'd go into specific issues of how like for Ruth, I think it would be should be testifying as to the loss of her son and the issues with visitation. I think visitations are going to be very damning against Donna, and I think the jury's going to look at her as being just as guilty, if not more, than Wendy for denying visitation to the Markells for so many years here now, year after year after year. I think there's a 6-year window, so the boys really don't know any of the Markells. And as far as the oldest son, Robert, who's disconnected from these other Adelsons in Florida, I think he was. I mean, I would expect him to testify as to the way they reacted when he talked to them about what the what had happened to Dan Markel and what they thought who the killer was and all that kind of stuff, and how they probably told him don't talk about it, keep quiet. We don't talk about Dan in this house. They probably said something crazy like that. And so that's what I think Rob's going to talk about. He'll also probably talk about the elimination issues he had when he was trying to date somebody that Don and Harvey didn't approve of. So yeah, I think it's gonna paint more of their relationship dynamics for the family and how it looks like. Yeah, this is sort of like an escalated version of how they were trying to bring all this radical hatred against Dan by upping the ante to that extreme to commit murder. Rabbit is asking, do you I think the ethics lawyer might give Rashomon a discount to answer the question if going on YouTube PR tour is a good idea. Um, I don't know about discount, but yeah, he probably asked about that as well. Is it okay if I talk about this to an ethics attorney and whatnot? But like I say, that is something I think is to talk about details of the case. I thought that was really shocking. I didn't think that was something that I would ever see a defense lawyer do from my states. Sonny M is saying the reason Wendy's not charged now is because Georgia wants Wendy to testify against Donna. It's the right move. Well, I I don't think they absolutely need to have Donna, Wendy testify to bring charges against both of them. But I think they're just set down this mindset. We're going to just do one at a time. We're not going to try to do two at a time like they start out with and got a hung jury. And so I think they're just doing one at a time. They're going to pick them off, but I think they're going to be able to get every single one of them here before too long. Anne is asking, do I believe that Dan really believes they're innocent? Well, I think as an attorney, you can look at the evidence if you got any kind of experience, and you can just see that it's overwhelming kind of evidence of guilt against your client. So he's probably not really thinking about what he personally believes in. He's just looking at how to challenge and attack the evidence. So, but that's what defense attorneys are called to do. They're called to represent cases where it can be overwhelming guilt, and if the client doesn't want to plead guilty, you just got to go. It's like a legal chess game. I know as a defense attorney, initially I thought I would never be a defense attorney because I was so pro prosecution oriented, and then once I missed the courtroom, I got rotated out of the prosecution cycle in the Army JAG Corps, and then I decided to take him up on the recruitment of me to be a defense lawyer. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll just look at it as like a legal chess game, and it actually made me a much better attorney to be able to look at things on from a different perspective, a different angle. And I've actually done a lot more defense violence cases as a defense attorney than I have as a prosecutor. So I would say that the experience I got doing that, I think, is what really builds your ability to represent a case, whether you're a prosecutor, defense counsel, it doesn't matter. I've rotated between those positions numerous times, and so I can just plug and play it and really change hats without a problem. So so yeah, Carly's asking if when you'll have testify. Yeah, you can expect her to be testifying again. Not now is asking, do I think it's tedious and boring for the prosecutors to try this case since they've been dealing with it for more than 9 years? Well, I mean, one hand, it's like, gosh, can't we get these Adelsons all locked up and put away? But if you're only doing them one at a time, I mean, that's what's going to happen. It's going to take a lot longer. But at least I guess on the other flip side of it, the trials are shorter in the sense that you don't have, with multiple co-defendants, you have multiple times longer cross examinations of each and every witness because every lawyer has to get up there and do some cross examination for each defendant anyway. One at least one lawyer would be cross examining for each defendant, so that would take a little bit longer, but at least you get it out of the way. And that's what I would hope that they would do. And if you think about it, even Stephen Webster there, who's the attorney for he was the attorney for Dan Markel, he's thought that maybe Wendy could be there at the defense table when Donna goes to trial. But I just think that's too soon for them. I think they don't want to do that. Roxanne is asking, can any of Rashbaum's conduct, interviews, et cetera, cause a mistrial? Normally not defense counsel. They're not gonna credit with that. Otherwise, defense counsel could try to do antics and stuff like that to try to create a mistrial. So I don't see that happening with his interviews and whatnot. I don't think his interview is going to affect any jurors. Probably out of the hundreds that come in there, maybe you'll have two people that saw and they won't remember what he said. So that's really probably the sum and substance of it there. Matilda Yeager's asking, can Wendy refuse to testify in Donna's trial, or did the immunity deal require that she testifies when to do so? Well, there's not really a deal that she received from the state. It's just a statutory provision that says if you're subpoenaed by the state, you're automatically covered with certain types of immunity for any incriminating evidence you have against yourself. So the things that she testified to previously cannot be used against her unless she lied about it, which a lot of people like myself are saying there's a lot of lies. It's full of many different lies that they could charge her with that as well, which is perjury in a murder case, which the punishment goes way up, like it does in most states. So what happens here is that she's if she did not cooperate, then they could basically, like the judge threatened with Harvey and Donna when they weren't cooperating with the investigative deposition. The judge said he was going to have basically armed escorts bring them up to the county jail there in Leon County, and they could deal with the judge at that time. So I think any point that Wendy was going to think about not cooperating and looking for some excuse to dodge having to testify against her brother, I think that right there put quite a bit of fear in her that she's not going to even dare try that. So yeah, she is going to be forced to testify, definitely. Now, whether well, I won't go down that road. I'm not going to come up with any kind of different angles that they may try to pull. So Baker Connor's asking, can testimony from Charlie's trial be used in Donna's trial? No, you got to recall all the same witnesses. You just can't, put a videotape up there saying that this is what happened in the previous trial. And now, if, for example, if there was a previous trial let's say hypothetically, if Donna had been tried with Charlie, and let's say there was a hung jury for her, sort of like for Katie's trial, and if a witness, let's say, died, and then for her trial that witness wasn't available, they could actually bring forward, and under the rules of evidence for most states, you could bring that kind of evidence forward from somebody because they were available to be cross-examined. The defendant was there, and so you have something like that as the only option to be able to preserve that kind of evidence and bring it forward. But short of that, you're going to have to bring all these witnesses fresh. You just can't bring in like a transcript or a video showing of what happened in the previous trial. Can't think of one is asking where the prosecution is given any weight to Wendy's boys potentially delaying their arrest to have less an effect on them and give more time with mom. I don't think that's a consideration at all. I really don't. I mean, the flip side of that is, I mean, they're do you really want boys being around somebody that murdered the other parent? That's I would submit that the answer is no to that. Linda Feldman is asking, why doesn't she just plead or admit it? Because that's not something that people in her position do. They're always used to being in a position of having the attorneys and their political connections get them out of any kind of jam. And so they're not going down without a fight, and they're not going to admit to a single thing. So I think the only chance of something like that happens if Donna and Harvey die, and it's just Charlie left with Wendy, and Wendy's out running around, living on South Beach. He may get so disgusted he doesn't even care what he does, because he may want to just be at the point he doesn't care if he lives anymore. So he's just willing to throw in the towel and bring the whole house down against Wendy. Murder by Maestro. You've done a lot of great work. I appreciate seeing what you've done. He's asking, can Georgia actually get a gag order on Roshbaum? What does that involve, and what judge, et cetera? Well, that's I don't see her doing a gag order, because, like I say, I think it's just he's trying to talk good about his client, and that's not going to be something you get a gag order on. The other part of it, that's more like details of the case. We're talking about details of the case here, so he's going to if the judge would try to put a gag order, he's going to say, well, look, all these people on this channel are talking about details of the case that I need to come back and do some counter fire. So I just don't see the judge being involved in that. And he's certainly not surfing this to be looking for that. So the judge would not raise it on his own, saying, oh, by the way, I happen to see on this YouTube channel some information that you were on. So it'd have to be something that the prosecutor raised to the judge, and I just don't see the prosecutors doing that. I don't think they think it's much of a concern. If anything, it's helped tipping him off and just helping more of the details of how he's going to be arguing the case, help them prep. So I would be liking that if I was a prosecutor. Hey, LJ, she's asking if I saw the reference to the new discovery involving Donna writing all of Katie's checks for doing nothing at work. I think that's not new. I think that was definitely that came out in the other trial. So I don't know what you mean by new. Is there more tech checks that we didn't know about? So I've not seen that. If that's the case, if you could please explain that here. Bertha Z is asking if the prosecution calls Rashomon to testify, could that cause a mistrial? I mean, it could, because if the other defense counsel isn't ready to go, and the you're in the middle of the trial here or whatnot, then that can cause a mistrial. If it's before the trial even starts, then that would not be a mistrial. They just have to create a delay for new counsel to get up to speed. So Lisa Burton is asking if, because Donna seems so relaxed, do you think she's on medication? Yeah, I think she probably is. And we would, of course, would not know what kind of medications she's on. But yeah, I think there's probably some kind of drugs that she's on. And we know that Charlie kept talking about Xanax. Just take a Xanax, mom. So that's probably your drug of choice. It can sort of zombify you as well, though. So it can make you sort of checked out, not really experience the pressure and have the right frame of mind to really grasp what you're dealing with here. So in that sense, it's not helpful as a defendant in jail facing murder charges. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about um, Law and Lit's asking why would she give up the chance to portray herself as Charlie's victim as a defense. I'm not going to really talk about their defense. I don't want to give them any ideas, but I think we saw what he's saying is that he was a victim of the extortion, and then Donna's just trying to help out as a mom, a loving mom, kind of stuff. So yeah, that's just not going to work. Hospice nurse is asking. That's a word I couldn't think of last time. So thanks to you that added it after the or during the chat or after whatever the case was. Why do defendants complain about juries when it doesn't go in their favor and have a bench trial instead? Well, I can tell you, your odds of getting an acquittal from a jury are astronomically higher than they are with a judge. Because with a judge, you just have one person to try to convince that state hasn't proven the case beyond a reasonable doubt from the defense perspective. Now I'm talking about, and I can tell you on a murder case, if you go to a judge alone on a murder case, the odds of you being acquitted by a judge, because there's so much political pressure then for a judge to acquit somebody on a murder case, especially, I just don't see it happening. And I've especially seen that in the military, where I've seen of cases where the defense counsel will have some kind of a sexual assault case, a rape case, or something like that that's highly charged politically, and they'll go judge alone, and it's like they're going down, and every time they've been convicted. I even one time talked to a prosecutor that said that he had a case, he thought it was absolute garbage. He didn't believe in it, but his chain of command wanted it prosecuted, and he took it to trial. The defense counsel waived jury, and the judge wound up convicting the guy. So I've always said that if you go judge alone on a on a case that's of violence, the odds of you being acquitted are practically zilch. Farm Cat is asking if Donna will fall on her sword to help save Charlie somewhat. No, she's out for herself. She can't save Charlie at this point by anything she does in her trial. There's Charlie's trial is over and done with. And something that happens in this case is normally not going to be something that could arise to something for his appellate rights and create an issue there. Pat O'Brien is asking why didn't they arrest Donna and Charlie at the same time? Yeah, that'd have been nice to see. Was the state waiting to see if they could get a conviction with Charlie? Well, they already did get a conviction with Charlie before they arrested Donna. Yeah, it'd have been nice to see them arrest Harvey, Donna, and Wendy all at the same time. But they're just like I say, they're trying to take them one at a time. Donna was next in the firing chamber, so they went ahead and took care of that. Beach Bum is asking, will Donna give up her appeal of ineffective assistance of counsel by keeping Rashmam on as an attorney? You said DM. I think you mean Rashmam, and I think pretty much that's not gonna be an issue because of the conflict necessarily because of what's happening right now at the trial. It could become one later on appeal, but that remains to be seen. But um, I've already talked about that earlier. Hey, Roberta. Well, 2 days in a row because we had court today, so that's the only reason I'm on. I've already talked about a gag order. Gag order, I don't foresee happening. Cynthia Kelly's saying after Donna agreed to keep Rashomon, could issues involving her representation be grounds for mistrial appeal? That's sort of the same kind of question. And I'm going to say there's always a potential down the road. I'm not going to get into what the specifics are, but there always some risk. I'll just put it that way. All right. So it is a high wire act for the defense attorney, and you never know what a how a conflict can spring up and hit you in the face. LJ is saying, do I think Katie admitting that she did nothing for the Adelson dental practice will crush Donna? Yeah, I think they're going to get into that more because she's the one that wrote the check. So yeah, I do think they're going to focus more on the checks, and some of the checks are written in sequential order. And I just think that's just such a damning piece of evidence against her that that's going to help the jury seal her fate with a conviction. JC Ryder saying this case needs to find closure. Yeah, I agree. Need some closure here, but they are moving them faster. I give them credit for that. Look how fast they arrested Wendy. They didn't let her flee the country for Vietnam. Katie 2 is asking, will the jury know Charlie's convicted? I think that's going to come out somehow. And I think it's such a high risk maneuver. And I know, I think it was Roberta Glass that didn't agree with me that they would call Charlie as a witness, but I just think it's for the defense, it's high risk. And I've said this before: if you're a defense counsel and you're going to call co-conspirators to trial to help your case for your client, and it's just really such a high risk maneuver. And yeah, it probably is going to come out that he's convicted. He may show up in prison attire. So, and even if he doesn't, I think it's just you're just playing with dynamite. But you know what? They may do it if they as crazy as I've seen this defense work. Yeah, I guess there is potential that normal things are not pursued. So yeah, I guess that's always a possibility. Carly's asking if the judge mentioned Rashmon's potentially being called as a witness. Asked Donna if she would understood the consequences of that. He didn't even say anything. Do you think it scared him? No, I just think it was part of a script. He probably asked the judge to read to Donna that he had prepped with his independent counsel. So I just don't see that being an issue because the state's not going to call him. They're not going to try to throw this this prosecution off the tracks because a Rashbaum might or might not have said something about you know testing the waters if you want to flee to another country. Jason Wallace is saying, do you think the Adelsons would have been charged if they totally ignored the bump and didn't pay attention to it? That's something that I would say that well, but you got Dolce Vides as well, so that you got that for Charlie. And but I think for Donna, I think that yeah, I think the wiretaps are so damning against Donna and the other code stuff they got on her as well that I think they probably wouldn't have charged Donna at least, but I think they definitely would have charged Charlie. Sundance Spirit is saying, wouldn't it be more effective if they made the other arrests, Wendy and Harvey, before Donna's trial begins? If in the middle of Donna Adelson's trial and Wendy's trying to flee during the time, that couldn't that create a mess? Well, I think that the prosecution sort of doesn't have the mindset right now to do them in fast sequential order. And so I just think they're wanting to see what the outcome of each one is and then perfect it from that time and then figure out what their battle plan is and who to go after next and what order. So I do think that Wendy would be next if they're doing this one at a time method. Sean Hennings is asking, why do I think Harvey didn't hop on the plane when she was arrested? I think Harvey probably felt he's too old to go to Vietnam. I mean, maybe he's thinking he's not going to be arrested. And I think from we heard on the jail tapes that they're saying they're coming after one each of them, and I think it was one by one or something like that. I can't remember the exact details, but that's what Donna was saying that the Rashomon had told her. I take that back. Maybe she didn't say Rashomon told her, but I think she thinks that they're coming after him one by one. They're going to pick them off. So that's a good thing because they need to be fearful of that happening. Viva RN is saying Ruth stated Donna was the architect of the conspiracy. Would she be asked to testify? I hope so. I think that's one of the. I think she'd be a great witness to testify to the denial of visitation. I think it also could be Phil to corroborate that. I'd have them both testify if I was a prosecutor, but soon, who knows? Maybe they won't have any of them, but I think they really need to establish the denial of visitation because that was the thing that was really the parental alienation is what was really what something Dan was fighting in his court motions, and so I think that's they need to bring that to life more and really talk about how it really was heating up. And if you think about it, Wendy was trying to downplay it and say that things were getting along pretty good between her and Dan before he got murdered, and that certainly was not the case. Terry Dunn is asking a question that frequently comes up. How did the police knew where Wendy was the day of the murder? How they picked her up from the restaurant? Um, I think Judy, the YouTube lawyer, said that they were able to ping her phone or something and find that out. But it also was a standard meeting place for her. So they might have called the school and said, hey, where's she at this time? And they could have said she's normally at that place. I don't know if they had the technology to do it that time. I can't remember the specifics of that. Julie Nielsen saying, could Rasho know the grand jury is about to convene? Well, yeah, I think it's scheduled. I don't think that's a secret. A grand jury's convening. What they're going to, what case they're going to be presented, I think, is the other issue. So if he got wind of that or something, I don't know. And they don't convene one on schedule. So maybe he got suspicious of that. I don't know. But I think it was actually convened after they prepared the warrant for arrest. So yeah, I mean, he could have caught in wind by talking to somebody up there. I don't know, but. So yeah, another question on would Rashomon be considered a called by the state? I don't think that's going to happen at all. There won't be. I don't expect to be a gag order. Maya is asking, is there a way the public can find out after the trial how much they paid for their defense, Charlie and Donna? No, we're not going to find that out. Most likely, it's not going to be a public record thing at all. That's private between the attorney and the client. June is asking, do you remember on the jail tapes when Charlie said the reasons for an appeal is ineffective counsel? It looks like they're setting up a legitimate reason for appeal. No, I don't recall that at all. I don't think that was said. So if somebody wants to contradict that and correct me, then I would say that was never the case. He was always praising Rashomon and said there wasn't any kind of effective assistance. He said the exact opposite, that Rashomon told her it wasn't going to be an effective assistance counsel issue. MM's asking, what are the chances they arrest Wendy and Harvey together? Don't know. I think they're going to do one at a time. So I think it's going to be within a month or two after the conviction for Donna. Debbie Brocky's asking, when did Charlie learn of Wendy's statement? Was her statement known before his trial? Yeah, he had like a year and a half to look over all the evidence, so he would have known of that at that time. Harvey's still at the airport. Yeah, I think she was definitely, I've said this before, I think that she was worried about him going ahead and getting on the plane because she was talking about how old and frail he is. He needs help getting home. And so I think she was wondering if he was going to do that. It's like she was trying to make sure he got escorted out of there where he couldn't keep walking walk into the plane. L'Oreal's asking whether Charlie can make money from a movie or book deal while in prison. I don't know what they have for Florida laws on that. A lot of states have shut that down from what I've heard, but I mean, I think the complexity of this this case overall is not too complex. What's complex is the amount of minutia. You just got to dig in all the minutia, and but if you dig in the minutia, that's what builds the great foundation for the prosecution. So they just got to have all this digital evidence, all the details, especially for Wendy, all of her detailed actions that are so critical to show that she had consciousness of guilt and foreknowledge that this was gonna be going on, and she helped provide some of the key information to that was passed on to the hitmen. Some funny jokes here. Yeah, KCL's asking, saying supposedly Alex Morris is not a court date for Donna because he's doing a murder trial and has 1 week or so left in that. Yeah, I heard he's doing a murder trial, like I think maybe in Gainesville or something like that. So that's why he's not around. So yeah, that is true. Thanks for sharing that. Sugar Gold's asking me, how much wealthier Rashram is since taking on the Adelsons. I don't know. I mean, I think it's got to be 1.5 million at least at a minimum. Could be wrong. Don't know. I'm just taking a speculative guess. LJ's asking if I agree Rashbam is so weak that his bizarre theories that Georgia probably prefers going against Rashbam if she can conflict him out. Yeah, I mean, if you have an attorney that their method, their strategies, have already done it one time and they've lost miserably. Yeah, I mean that's a level of comfort. I would say you have a known entity. Now, granted, you have a new guy there, Alex Morris, but I think Rashbam is going to be the the one carrying most of the water for doing the attack on the government's witnesses. So. But there's really, like I say, there's not really much of anything you can come up with for a credible defense for the way Donna behaved, how she was involved, and whatnot. Now, Roxanne is saying she's concerned about a mistrial more than anything. I'm not concerned about a mistrial because it's not going to be something that if there is a mistrial, you know what? They're just going to retry it, and she's going to still stay in jail, and she's may not make it to the second trial. I don't think she could hold up. She had to wait like 2 years to go to a second trial. I don't see that happening. But if she did demand speedy trial, if she got rid of her counsel and had to get new counsel, they're not going to want to go to speedy trial in a murder case. So it'd probably be a year out from her arrest. Yeah, I don't think Donna is ever going to have a chance to really ever have a chance to see face to face with Charlie. And unless he comes and testifies in her case, I don't think she's ever going to see him face to face. I don't think they're ever going to see Wendy unless she testifies against mom. That's probably the only time and last time she's only going to see her. And I don't think Harvey's going to really be going up to see Charlie at any point. Charlie's at the complete opposite end of the state. So yeah, just think about the separation. This was all about keeping Dan away from the boys and having exclusive contact with the boys. And now the boys aren't going to even see them, and they're willing to leave him behind and never see him again by going over to Vietnam. Same here as asking will the state be presenting any new evidence trial. Yeah, I've talked about that before. They have new digital evidence they're going to present, but otherwise it's going to be the Charlie 2.0 type of trial. Mr. Stubbs is asking, what do you make of the icon lease information? Do you think this would be part of proving that they were prepping for winning move? Yeah, I do think they're going to be doing that. I think that's what the new information they're doing to show the actions more of Harvey and Donna, and we also know from that was not brought out at the last trial, but remember how Jeff Lacoste had mentioned that they had the Wendy had told him she was cleaning out her bedroom when she was down there around 10 days before the 10 days before the actual murder took place. So yeah, they're prepping for a move, and so they moved right around that time, as I understand from Patty. Playhouse on her YouTube channel had gone over the details of it. I've not actually seen those details, but I personally talked to Patty, and uh, she uh, she gave me that kind of insight firsthand of what she was working on. And so I've not looked at the documents myself, but I just talked to her, and so yeah, I can relay that based on what I recall us talking about. And she has all the kind of tools because that's her specialty is real estate and appraisals and stuff like that. So she has all kinds of ability to pull records that other people wouldn't. Yeah, Terry Mack saying Donna was speaking to a third party, so surely the privilege falls away. Well, if you have somebody that does talk to a third party, that is correct. If you talk to somebody about what your attorney said, then that's waiving the privilege. So that statement could come out and be used against that person. But that is different than forcing the attorney to talk about it. That's a whole different matter. And especially in a criminal case, a murder case, that's just not going to happen on something so minor as that. Yeah, yes, I am from Iowa. Somebody from Cape Cod. All right. Yeah, Jade Roscoe saying, "Do you think Wendy not inviting the Markells to bar mitzvah will be brought up when she's on the stand?" I sure hope so. I mean, that'd be they just need to go really down that line of questioning and have at least one of the Markells there, either Ruth or Phil or both, and just blow that out of the water. I mean, I'm telling you, the jury will be they will see everything of what this was about once they hear how these these wonderful grandparents were just basically just cut off at the knees and denied all this visitation all these years. They don't even know their grandsons after losing. Just think about it, after getting their son murdered down there in Tallahassee. So it's just such a despicable outrage. And yeah, it's tied in with the motive for murder, the extermination of all everything Markel. So highly relevant to the trial. Joseph Brooks is asking in New York City, normally you go in for a consultation. Is that privileged regardless if you hire them or not? Yeah, it is. It is actually privileged. And so whether you pay them or not, it's privileged when you go talk to an attorney. And I can uh, I can tell you one time it happened to me even where I went in and talked to a couple of attorney guys that I was friends with, and I could just talk to them freely, but I even put some cash on the table and said, look, this needs to stay between you and me. And I told them something that was a very sensitive matter, and one of them turned around the next day and repeated it to another attorney that I had the issue with, and I could not believe it. I mean, you talk about us being stabbed in the back. So yeah, I mean that was privilege, and I even put money down. They didn't take the money, but um, yeah, that happened in Dallas, Texas, many years ago. So that was a real shocker and eye opener to me, where somebody's willing to um, do that to a fellow colleague attorney. So yeah, I mean, you never know what an attorney will do, and say something like that to reveal something that's otherwise privileged. So yeah, the privilege, like I said earlier, is the privilege is with the client, what the client believes. So if I'm talking to an attorney and I'm talking to him as a client, asking for advice and consultation, then that's something that they should know right away that they cannot repeat that outside that office. But that it happened, and I could have reported the guy, but I didn't. But I heard some really bad stuff happen to him afterwards. So Armand Fence is saying Rashbaum has revealed this case theory, which is Donna was not extorted. She only knew what Charlie told her. Sounds weak to me. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not going to work. She was so ingrained in it, and all the hatred and all that kind of stuff. Just playing her as the innocent mother, trying to help her son out, and so that's just not going to fly. Andy's asking, will they call Wendy to rat her mom out? No, well, in essence, yes, she is going to be putting a lot of weight on her. So that's something that she's not going to do willfully. I think it's all of her, all of the different stories she's told up there. Who knows what lies she's going to manufacture this next time? But the hits keep getting better. And if she thought she was rattled last time, just imagine how they got more evidence against her now. And I think you'll be seeing a lot more vigorous treating her as a hostile witness, so sort of like cross examination from Georgia. So yeah, it's going to be great to see. A day is saying Tallahassee and Hiawassee are both unsophisticated burgs in the northwest corner of Florida. Yeah, I happened to actually see that on a map today. Hiawassee, I think that's up on the way towards Thomasville, Georgia, right near the state border, really close to the border there with Georgia. So yeah, so it's not Springs, but it's Hiawassee, I think, just like it was spelled out in the book there. So it's maybe like 30 miles or not even that from Tallahassee, it seemed like. Elizabeth is saying, my sense is he was trying to suggest that he wasn't capable of she wasn't capable of a complicated diabolical conspiracy such as this murder. Yeah, well, yeah, because she's a nice mother. I don't think he called her a nice grandmother. It's but yeah, the other behavior is going to come out in this case, and it's going to be very damning. Rosemary Gallagher is asking whether Roberts reached out to his family or has he made any statements. My understanding is Roberts has cut off contact with him once he realized that they were guilty. They were acting guilty in his mind, and he's cut off contact with them. And it was already strained beforehand because of Donna's meddling and who he had for a love interest or a marriage interest. So Maya Giordano's asking if Wendy's here tonight. Well, I don't know if she's going to watch it live, but and I don't know if she looks at any of these, but it is a possibility. MM is asking, wouldn't it be easier for any of them to flip if they were already arrested? Well, if you charge folks, then it is easier to get folks to cooperate. As I've said numerous times, that you're not going to have people sign up and go to the police station and say, "Hey, would you charge me so I can cooperate against the prosecution? Go ahead and charge me with murder so I can cooperate or agree to a lesser charge and stuff like that." They just don't. They just don't raise their hands like that. And so that's why when you charge folks, it's more likely. So just doing it one at a time, you're less likely to get that kind of cooperation. But if you sort of throw a dynamite into the circle in the center circle of numerous co-conspirators, that's more likely to get them to be the first one to want to run to the table of the prosecutor and say, "Hey, cut me a deal, cut me a sweetheart deal. I'm ready to flip on all the rest." But it's a little bit different, obviously, because you have family members involved here that don't want to do that kind of flipping at this point. But Sheila Nelson's asking, "What do I think about Rashomon saying he inspected Donna's phone? It was clean." Yeah, that was. I don't know what he meant by that. He inspected. I think he's talking about maybe the forensic report came back. It was clean or something. I don't know. I don't know they would have gotten that yet. So and something that he says is clean, just like he might have said about the some of the other evidence in the court that was completely characterization from reality. So I wouldn't believe any of that. Ms. Jim Morrison saying, "I really hope that they will introduce Wendy's podcast to Donna's trial. That her own words will convict her. Very disgraceful." Yeah, there was some stuff on there that I thought was not not helping her at all. And yeah, so I think they need to go that level of granular detail on all these different things she's said and done over the years, especially surrounding the time before and after and during the day of the murder. So, Mom Crime Junkies asking if I talked to Phil and Ruth Markel. I've talked to him down there when I went down there for the closing arguments. I did meet with them over the 2 days. I think 2.5 days I was down there. So yeah, I did get to meet with them, and that was a great experience. Very courageous, sweet, kind people that you just can't believe what they've had to endure. But justice is slowly wheels justice slowly turning here to help them out. LJ is saying, guarantee that defense has paralegals monitoring everything on YouTube. They have money to burn. Yeah, I mean there are trolls out there, and I would say that they're definitely doing stuff to try to infiltrate different even channels like that I've had here. I've said that before. I thought there was a guy that was been shadowing me and a bunch of other channels, investing a lot of time and always talking about how there just wasn't enough evidence against Wendy. So it just looked like it was typical of something you would see as somebody that was paid by the defense to try to counter all this these chats and comments about the evidence against her. Yeah, Mon Jeezy says, "How can Wendy testify this is our story isn't about her life when she says in the prologue of the book that this book is based on her heavily and on her life?" Yeah, I don't know if it's the beginning of the book or the end of the book, but I did see that that book is about her and largely based, I think is the word she used, largely based on her life. And I mean, it paralleled it so much that for her to say it was really on a friend of hers, that would have been interesting if Georgia would have had that book and then approached her and showed the book and have her read that book. Man, that would have been a golden moment. But they got enough lies out of her. I mean, they had the special agent of the FBI, Sanford, there, and he was the one that blew her testimony out of the waters, showing she was lying about other stuff. So I would say also, it was nice to see Special Agent Sanford there in the courtroom. Keep in mind, he was the one that on a that same day that Donna was arrested, he had to rush down to Miami and intercept her before she got on that plane. So he wanted to make sure that she didn't fall through the cracks and local law enforcement didn't apprehend them. And so he was there to read her the fact that she was being charged with murder. So Andy Logan's asking if I practice live in Dallas. I have an office north of Dallas in McKinney, and but I'm living in Tennessee right now. But I'm transitioning back that way. So Jada Roscoe is asking, do I think the state is worried Harvey might harm himself if Donna gets convicted? I don't think they're really thinking those terms as the prosecutors. I think they're just thinking who they're going to prosecute and whatnot. If Harvey gets arrested, obviously what's the status with Wendy's Wendy getting arrested at the same time? And if she gets arrested at the same time as Harvey, then obviously the issue is who's going to watch the boys. So the state would get involved in that time at that point to make sure the boys had a place to go, and it's not going to be the prosecutors that get involved in that. It would be like the child protective services, whatever they call that for Florida. So I think I'm going to look for one more question here. Yeah, Jared Tisa is saying every time Wendy takes a stand, she lies more and more. We'll see way more lies this time. Yeah, I agree with that. You're totally right, and I think that she thought it was bad having to testify against her brother. Imagine who they didn't get along good. It looks like, and so testifying against your mom, that's going to be really wow. I'm thinking she probably doesn't want to. She's dreading the day that she's going to know the trial date when it's going to be started. When she's dreading that subpoena as well. God is good. Yes. And you're asking, do you think Donna and Charlie feel it was worth it to kill Dan? Do you think they feel any regret? No, I don't think they. Donna and Charlie, I don't think they're. I don't think Charlie's going to think of that yet. I think it's going to be taking some months for him to come to recognition that he set this up and he could have said no, but he did it to impress his mom and dad, and he was the maestro. He knew how to control everything. He knew the way things really worked. So it's just really hard for people to ever admit that kind of thing. But I think what's really going to eat on him the most to be willing to do something is it's going to irritate him that Wendy is walking around scot free. I think that's going to really eat on him. Allison is asking, will the Holocaust ring be brought up at Donna's trial? I sure hope so. I was wondering why they didn't bring that up. I thought that was a critical piece of information. I would have brought that up also with Stephen Webster. Somebody's asking, I hope Carl answers that one. That was a question by Taffy Cat. I don't see Taffy. Oh, here it is. Why wouldn't the prosecution just call Dan as a witness to get him off the case? Is there some real ethics about this? You don't want to call a defense counsel off a murder case. I mean, that's just so radically outside the norm of how things work. And what did he do wrong that we know of for sure? What did he tell her that was a crime? He didn't commit a crime, and so there was no obstruction of justice charge he can commit a crime for. So it's just not an issue that I think is going to be raised by defense. And even if they try to bring it up, I mean, it's basically making Rashbaum look bad. He doesn't gonna want to make himself look bad in front of a jury. So I think the prosecution is just ignoring it. And I think he's going to ignore it as well and just try to put some ridiculous spin on it, like he does for everything else. Yeah, Pat O'Brien is saying I have grandchildren. It would kill me not to be able to see them. Yeah, imagine how they're suffering up there in Montreal or Toronto. I forget where it is. I get those two mixed up for the Markells. All right, so with that, I think I'm going to sign off here. So Olivia is asking, apparently from Australia, is asking, why was Wendy's calls not recorded? Surely she should have been on the subpoena as the ex-wife. I think because she's an attorney, they were intimidated by that. I think because she came in there and talked to him, I think they just gave her pretty much a free pass to. I think, well, it wasn't her involved, right? It was maybe Charlie and Charlie's friend, and so I think they weren't looking at the other Adelsons, including Wendy, and so that's what I think was going on, and she had maybe more political. She also maybe has some political top cover, and so keep in mind that judge in Miami there was, that was, as I understand it, that was, her godfather of sorts. So she definitely had some protection going on from what it looks like. I just want to say this here. Woodall was saying Don and Harvey hired movers during the Pearl Harbor divorce weekend. Wendy moved to Coral Springs. Court ordered her back to Tallahassee with the boys. No, that's not my understanding. My understanding is that she moved to Aqua Ridge during the time that the Pearl Harbor divorce filing happened, and at that point, she was not ordered back to Tallahassee at all. No, that never happened. She never left Tallahassee until the murder happened. Then she left like 2 days later. So that's the way it went down. And she got the rest of her stuff at Aqua Ridge. She got that within a month, from what I'm told. A month of the murder is when she had all the stuff cleaned out that Aqua Ridge apartment. And I think it's very critical, or excuse me, not apartment, but a house. I think it's very critical that the prosecution does look at these leases that they had to where they're going to reside once the murder happened, because they that shows planning. So they did other stuff to try to make it look like she was going to be entrenched there in Tallahassee and could never been part of the murder, because actually she was, getting the kids enrolled in a new school and applied for their lotto system to try to get approved, and they wound up getting approved. And so you're doing all this kind of stuff to make it look like you're fully engaged in staying there, but meanwhile, you know, your job is about to be imploded. You're about to be facing bar issues with the judge. Judge is about to throw the book at you for hiding assets, and also not giving back that Holocaust survivor ring that's from the Markel family lineage. And so she had a lot of stuff that were about to really mess her up. And I would say that was something that they took all this into account, and because it was really rushed, because this motion, there was also a motion that was about to be filed. Keep in mind the day that Dan got shot in the face, that he basically had his lawyer was ready to file it. It was even bring more pressure to bear on Wendy, that they never got to file it because Dana apparently didn't sign it. That's my understanding of it. So in any event, things were heating up. They were not calming down, as with Wendy um, testified to, that things were working out pretty good between them. It'd been a year since the divorce had been finalized and whatnot, but no, it was actually getting worse and worse, and she was facing a horrendous situation. So, and back pain for everything. I think Wendy told Jeff stay away that week so she could pack her house. Absolutely, she cut off contact with him, and also she didn't want to talk to Dan because that was the last week he was going to be alive. I mean, this is the kind of stuff jury's going to pick up on so easily. So, in any event. All right, so with that, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. There's some questions obviously I don't get to, so if you next time I'll be back on is probably no later than Sunday night, 7 or 8 o'clock Central Time. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for fighting justice for Mark Hills, and I appreciate all the other folks. They're putting all that great information out there, great graphics, great evidentiary value type things, and better days are ahead for justice in this case for the Markells. And thank you for being a part of that. Have a good night.